give you my opinion on the match tonight at St James's Park. Newcastle United losing by 2-0 against Aston Villa. Missed opportunity, if you want my honest opinion, and Newcastle, with all the results going their way, more or less, yesterday had a unique opportunity to get back into the, to the runners and riders for the Champions League spots. But Eddie Howe today, outthought by Unai Emery and his team. Although the effort was there, put a lot of effort in, and bearing in mind Aston Villa played Thursday night against Fenerbahce and got a 1-0 win in Turkey. They had a day's less rest. It wasn't a fitness battle today that Newcastle lost. What they lost was they lost the tactical battle. And why did they lose the tactical battle? Well, it's because it was the same old tactics from Eddie Howe. I can't criticise the team that he picked. I think the team that he picked was probably the strongest, certainly on paper. We were obviously going to miss Bruno. Bruno obviously injured in the last fixture. And I thought putting Lewis Miley in there was a tip of the hat to how well the young lad has played. We don't have many options from a creative point of view. So it was always about how he was going to set up and how the formation was going to go. For me, Tonali was sitting deep. I would have preferred to see Tonali push forward. I think Lewis Miley's proved from a defensive point of view that he can sit deep and he can play defensively. And I just thought that, I thought maybe that Tonali was sitting far too deep and he would have been better upfield. As soon as we missed that first chance, as soon as we didn't score from that first opportunity, I turned to the guys who were sitting next to at the match, and I went, it's going to be another one of those games. And it just felt like it. And yeah, did I get carried away? I predicted a 2-0 win. I was, maybe with black and white tinted glasses on. I did say this week that the PSV result didn't paper over the cracks of an average performing team in the league this season. And again, I've been proved right. My rather optimistic 2-0 prediction, miles off. Newcastle didn't look like scoring today. And it was the same old problem. Wissa, not sure whether he's fully fit yet. He's jogging. He's not sprinting. He's not capable of, beating a defender. He jogs into position. I couldn't criticise Gordon today. Gordon, I felt, did his bit defensively and in the attacking forward line. He put some decent balls in, but every ball was either sky high or above anybody who was managing to get into the box. And a couple, of course, he put into the Gallagher end in that first half. Harvey Barnes wasn't at the races today, didn't have a great game. And I felt that, unfortunately for him, everything just, nothing fell for him. In fact, when Elanga came on, Elanga probably looked the better player in that position today. The midfield, we're always going to lose, as I say, the creative buzz when Bruno's not there. So it lacked creativity. And of course, when Joe Linton got injured, it lacked any kind of steel. And we were getting overshadowed in the first half anyway. And I just think we lost the midfield battle today, despite the fact that they were missing Kamara, and McGinn. Tielemans is, still bossing that midfield, and they were quicker, they were sharper, they were more physical, and they were getting the decisions off Jared Gillett, who today was awful. Jared Gillett again was awful. Terrible decision making. No consistency. Certainly allowing them to get away with blatant time wasting, and that in itself was like, it was a hard watch. It was one rule for one and another for another. There was times as well where the linesman, were trying to, bring his attention to stuff. He wasn't watching. He wasn't bothered. He just, again, just another poor performance from Jared Gillett. He's not my favourite referee, and I thought he was poor. Having said all that, credit to Aston Villa. Good team, third in the league, opened a 10-point gap now on everybody behind them. They've found a bit of consistency. They've got European football as well, so you can't point at European football as an excuse for not being able to win a Premier League game. The reason Newcastle United aren't winning Premier League games that they should be winning is we don't have a plan B. And we're all sick of saying that. We're all sick of talking about it, but we do not have a plan B. Eddie Howe refuses to change tactics, and against Wolves away and against Aston Villa at home now, I can pick those two games out because they're in our recent memory. He won't even consider 4-4-2. And there's a collective groan when Wissa goes off. He wasn't playing well, so it was the right decision. And he brings Voltemada on. And that's not having a go at Voltemada. But Voltemada is not going to get you, he's not going to get you 2 or 3 goals when he comes on. And there's no plan B. There isn't a plan B. And, I love what Eddie's done for the club. I love the fact that he's won us our first trophy in so many years. But it's so frustrating when Eddie and his coaching team don't think that we could change tactics. It's so frustrating. You can hear the frustration. And for me, that is the reason we lost the game. We could have easily got something out of it. I think up until Joe Linton went off, we were competing in that game. I think after that, we weren't competing in the game. There was some nice moves, there's some nice football, some pretty movement, but very little after that. Man of the match for me was Sven Botman. I think I've said on the podcast on more than one occasion, recent games since he's come back, he hasn't been good. He's the kind of person who I've said, if you had to sell a big name player, I would consider selling Botman. If Botman can put in the kind of performances he put in today, I would keep Botman. But, he was the only shining light for me. Lewis Hall wasn't great. Lots of physicality, lots of runs, but not the greatest today. Probably one of his poorer games. I do genuinely think though that it was just a tough watch, and there was nobody who really stood out. What do we do moving forward? Well, if the owners have a genuine desire for Newcastle United to be number one, then we go and spend some money in this transfer window. That's what we should have done. Because with this squad, we aren't good enough to be number one. We're a mile off. We're 10 miles off. And we're not in that kind of position where we can ever attempt to be number one. So we either have to breach the rules and take the punishment and crack on, or we have to accept that this is where we are as a fan base. We have to accept that Newcastle United are going to be in this position for quite a while, because the rules are set against teams like us and against Villa, and we're never going to have that opportunity to be number one. But we need a few more players really to even compete. When you watched Malik Chow today, decent enough. Kieran Trippier, love him to bits. Wonderful player, one of the key players we've had since the takeover. Sometimes though, his legs won't do what his head are telling them, but he didn't have a bad game today. I wouldn't have laid any kind of blame on him. But it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And the problem is as well, and this is the problem that Eddie has, is that there's two things for me. The expectancy levels are sky high because we won a trophy last season. And ultimately, people are now expecting Newcastle, to go on and do the same again now. And the other thing is that, the local rivals, Sunderland, are in the Premier League. And that is always going to be something that subconsciously people always look at. There's a North-East battle going on now. We could have 3 with Middlesbrough back in the Premier League next year. But we are, as a fan base, that does affect the fans as well. We're going out of the frying pan into the fire now, though. Eddie will have had one eye, of course, on the Champions League game coming up. Financially, that is, very rewarding if Newcastle can get through to the next round. And, get 2 playoff games. It's, the finance coming in is great. But you don't win trophies. We're not going to win the Champions League. It'd be nice to think we could, but, we're not going to win it. And then we go to Liverpool next week, who are going to be very sore after their defeat against Bournemouth, and will be looking to regain their form. And at the moment, Newcastle don't look capable of going to Liverpool and scoring 1 goal, never mind 2. And that's a worry for me. That is a worry. That game was against a team that Newcastle would consider one of their rivals, and they looked second best. Villa have took 4 points off us this season. And the games, as I say, are coming thick and fast. And the way that things are looking at the moment in the Premier League, you'd have to say that Newcastle finishing in the top 10 would be realistic. That's where you know, for me, at this moment in time, I predicted top 5, 5th place finish, and a good run in the FA Cup to the final. But at the moment, you know, it's very hard to see Newcastle finishing, you know, anywhere but, you know, in that top 10, and then it's take your pick. But until Eddie Howe changes his ideas and his formations, and the rest of the team decide that they're going to change, you know, the rest of the coaching team, you know, come up with something different, I'm afraid it's going to be more of the same until the end of the season. We've just got to accept that. And there'll be wins. Of course, there'll be wins. There'll be more disappointment along the way. And I think we've just got to accept that. Can we change it? Yes. But the only way we'll change it is if Newcastle United change their formation. And for me, you know, Newcastle United have to really look at bringing in a player or two. I don't think either of those things are going to happen, though. So this month is going to be testing February with the Carabao Cup semi-final, second leg. We could crash out of that. We could get a couple of difficult games to add to the fixture list in the Champions League. A tough game at Aston Villa in the FA Cup. And if we crash out of the FA Cup as well, we could be back to being, you know, we could be back to doom and gloom. But yeah, man of the match, I've already said it today, Sven Botman, for me. Leave some comments and let me know who you thought was man of the match. But that's all for now. We are back tomorrow live on the Fans Forum, 6 o'clock. I'm sure there'll be lots of interesting views from the lads on there tomorrow night. So look forward to seeing you all then. Take care. Have a good night, whatever you're doing.